The Galactic Council's mistake became clear as humans left the peace table. The air inside the grand chamber of Varelli's was thick with tension. High above the moon's dusty surface, the dome-shaped hall floated in low orbit, held steady by silent grav anchors. Through its transparent ceiling, stars glittered like frozen sparks, indifferent to the drama unfolding below. Delegates from over 40 species sat in tiered rings, their forms as varied as the worlds they represented, some armored in chitin, others wrapped in flowing synth silk, a few barely more than floating clouds of light contained in force fields. At the center of it all stood the human delegation. Ambassador Rel Torvin adjusted the simple gray tunic at his collar. He was not tall, not imposing, and carried none of the ornate jewelry or ceremonial blades that many others wore. Beside him stood Kira Voss, her posture rigid, eyes scanning the chamber like a hawk over open plains. She wore no uniform, only a dark jacket with subtle insignia at the shoulder, enough to mark her as military, not enough to provoke. They had come in peace, as the old human phrase went. But peace, it seemed, was not what the council wanted to offer. The Thalorian delegate Vexis rose from her elevated seat. Her silver-blue skin shimmered under the chamber lights, and the twin frills along her neck flared slightly, a sign of agitation, or perhaps arrogance. She did not speak immediately. Instead, she let silence stretch, a tactic meant to unnerve. Many species found it effective. Humans, however, had long learned to sit with silence. "Earth," Vexis finally said, her voice smooth but edged like glass, "has enjoyed observer status for 3 solar cycles. During that time, you have expanded your reach far beyond what was granted. You have mined asteroids in neutral zones. You have established outposts near the Helios Gate without council approval. And now, you claim ownership over the gate itself, a nexus that affects trade, defense, and stability for every member of this assembly." Torvin stepped forward, hands clasped loosely in front of him. "The Helios Gate was discovered by human probes. We mapped its quantum pathways. We stabilized its event horizon. It lies within a system we've settled for over a century. Sovereignty isn't a gift from the Council. It's earned through presence, labor, and responsibility." A murmur rippled through the chamber. Some delegates shifted. Others remained still, unreadable. Vexis tilted her head. "Responsibility? You call it responsibility. We call it opportunism. The gate is too vital to be controlled by a single species, especially one so young, so volatile. The Krellian Wars proved that unchecked ambition leads to ruin. Humanity has shown flashes of brilliance, yes, but also recklessness. Your history is soaked in conflict. That history also taught us restraint," Torvin replied calmly. "We didn't start the Krellian Wars, we ended them. Our fleet held the line at Cygnus Rift when half the Council was retreating. We lost 12 ships, over 3,000 lives. Not for territory, not for power. To protect civilians, yours included." Voss said nothing, but her jaw tightened. She remembered Cygnus Rift. She'd been on the bridge of the Aurora Dawn when the Krellian dreadnoughts broke through. She remembered the silence after the comms went dead, the smell of burnt wiring, the weight of command when you're 28 and everyone's looking to you to keep them alive. Vexis waved a dismissive hand. "Past deeds do not guarantee future wisdom. The Council has spoken. You will relinquish control of the Helios Gate. You will dismantle your military installations within 5 light days of the Nexus, and you will accept permanent oversight by a joint Council task force." Torvin's eyes narrowed slightly. "And if we refuse?" The chamber fell utterly quiet. Even the ambient hum of life support seemed to fade. "Then," Vexis said, her voice dropping to a near whisper that somehow carried to every corner, "you will be stripped of observer status. You will be barred from all Council proceedings. Your trade licenses will be revoked. Your ships will be denied safe passage through Allied space. In short, you will be cast out. Not as enemies, but as irrelevant." A vote was called. It passed unanimously. Not a single species opposed it. Not even the Qatari, who had fought beside humans at Cygnus Rift. Not even the gentle Lumen, who had once traded poetry with Earth scholars. They all raised their tokens of assent, crystals, data chips, bioluminescent spores, and sealed humanity's fate with cold efficiency. Torvin did not argue. He simply nodded once, turned, and walked toward the exit. Voss followed, her boots clicking softly against the polished floor. As they passed through the arched doorway, the chamber erupted into low chatter, relief, judgment, perhaps a hint of unease. But none of it mattered now. Outside in the docking bay, their shuttle waited. It was small, unmarked, built for function, not ceremony. The pilot, a young man named Eli, stood by the ramp, his face unreadable. He'd heard the verdict over the comms. "Where to, sir?" he asked as Torvin boarded. "Home," Torvin said. But Voss paused at the top of the ramp. She looked back toward the grand chamber, then up at the starfield beyond the viewport. Her eyes lingered on a point near the edge of the Helios expanse, a dark patch of space where human sensors had recently detected strange energy fluctuations. A place the council had dismissed as empty void. "They think we'll crawl back," she said quietly. "Beg for scraps." Torvin joined her at the railing. "They see us as children who've misbehaved. They don't understand. We stopped asking for permission a long time ago." Inside the shuttle, Eli powered up the engines. As the vessel lifted off, Voss activated a secure channel on her wrist terminal. A single line of text appeared on a hidden screen. "Initiate Veil Protocol. Phase 1 confirmed." Far below, on the surface of Varelli's, a maintenance drone detached from the Council's main comms array. It wasn't Council property. It had been planted weeks ago, disguised as a standard repair unit. Now it began transmitting quietly, invisibly, feeding every Council frequency, every encrypted channel, every security code back to a relay hidden inside a derelict freighter drifting near Neptune. The human delegation hadn't come to Varelli's to negotiate. They'd come to watch the Council hang itself with its own pride. As the shuttle vanished into the black, leaving the grand chamber glowing like a lonely lantern in the void, no one on the Council noticed the faint distortion in the sensor grid near the Helios gate. No one saw the 3 human vessels, dark, silent, undetectable, slip through the event horizon and disappear into the unknown. They were already gone. And the galaxy wouldn't realize what it had lost until it was too late. Weeks passed. The stars turned, and the galaxy began to notice something strange. First, it was small things. A Zarn hegemony patrol near the outer rim of the Helios expanse failed to check in. Then another. The Zarn were insectoid, proud and precise. Delays were not in their nature. When 3 full squadrons vanished without a single distress signal, the Council grew uneasy. They sent a probe. It returned with static and scorched hull fragments. Then came the rumors. Whispers from freighter crews, garbled logs from automated outposts. Ships were seeing shadows where there should be nothing. Sensors blinked off for seconds at a time, then returned as if nothing happened. Some claimed they heard voices in the static. Human voices, but that was dismissed as stress or sabotage. On Varelli's, Vexus held emergency sessions. She blamed pirates, rogue AI, even ancient cosmic entities. "Anything but humans. Earth has no fleet capable of such operations," she declared. "They are grounded, isolated, and weak." But in a hidden asteroid base drifting between Mars and Jupiter, Miko Drace wiped sweat from her brow and stared at a holographic readout that pulsed with steady green light. Around her, engineers moved quietly, adjusting coolant lines and calibrating emitters. The air smelled of ozone and hot metal. This was not a war room. It was a workshop. And what they had built here was not a weapon, at least not in the way the galaxy understood weapons. Project Aegis was complete. It wasn't a bomb. It wasn't a laser. It was a field, a bubble of warped quantum space that bent light, heat, and sensor waves around whatever it touched. A ship wrapped in an Aegis field didn't just go dark. It became part of the background noise of the universe. To radar, it was empty space. To thermal scans, it was cold void. To the naked eye, if you were lucky enough to glance its way, it was a flicker, like heat haze over desert sand. Drace tapped a command into her console. On the main screen, a simulation showed a human cargo hauler, ordinary, unarmored, slipping past a Zarn patrol. The Zarn sensors never registered it, not even when it passed within 5 kilometers. "Phase 1 is stable," she said to no one in particular. Her voice was calm, but her hands trembled slightly. She knew what came next. A secure message blinked on her screen. Encrypted, untraceable. Just 3 words. "Veil protocol active." She took a deep breath and pressed confirm. Far away, near the edge of Proxima Centauri's influence, a Council listening post orbited a dead moon. Its job was simple: monitor all comms, track ship movements, report anomalies. For 20 years, it had done its duty without fail. Then, without warning, every system went silent. Power dropped to zero, life support shut down. The station didn't explode. It just stopped, like someone had flipped a switch. Back on Varelli's, panic began to spread. The Zarn demanded answers. The Qatari sent scouts. The Lumen offered prayers. No one could explain what was happening. Ships vanished. Stations died. Trade routes grew quiet. And always, there were no signs of battle, no wreckage, no energy spikes, no debris fields. Then came the crippled Zarn cruiser. It limped into neutral space near the Gethra belt, hull blackened, engines sputtering. Its crew was half dead from oxygen loss, but they had a story to tell. Through cracked mandibles and trembling limbs, they spoke of silent ships that appeared out of nowhere, disabled their weapons with pulses of unknown energy, and then vanished before they could fire a single shot. One survivor, a young Zarn navigator, kept repeating the same phrase. They were ghosts, but ghosts with purpose. The council dismissed it as hysteria. Vexes called it primitive fear-mongering, but even she couldn't ignore the data. Over 60 vessels, military, civilian, scientific, had disappeared in the last month. All near human-influenced space, all without a trace. Meanwhile, on Earth, life went on. Markets bustled. Children went to school. News feeds talked about crop yields and sports. No one mentioned the black ship slipping through the Helios gate. No one spoke of the retrofit teams working around the clock on freighters, mining drones, even old orbital tugs. Every human vessel with an engine and a hull was being fitted with a compact Aegis module. Not to attack, to disappear. Kira Voss stood on the observation deck of a mobile command station hidden in the Oort cloud. Below her, through thick reinforced glass, floated a fleet of ships, dozens of them, all dark, all still. None bore Earth's insignia. None broadcast identification codes. They were just there, waiting. Torvin joined her, holding 2 cups of synthetic coffee. He handed her one. "They're starting to look for us," he said. "They won't find us," Voss replied. "Not until we want them to." She sipped the bitter liquid and watched a cargo hauler, painted with the logo of a civilian shipping company, detach from the station and glide silently into the void. On its hull, hidden beneath a panel, an Aegis emitter hummed to life. The ship shimmered once, then faded from view like a dream upon waking. Back on Virelli's, the council convened again. This time, the mood was different. Fear had replaced arrogance. Vexes tried to project control, but her frills remained flat, a sign of stress among Thalorians. "We must assume Earth is behind this," said a deep-voiced delegate from the stone-skinned Goral Collective. "Impossible," Vexes snapped. "They have no navy, no stealth tech, no capability." "Then who?" the Goral shot back. "The Void doesn't steal ships, Vexes. Someone does." Before she could reply, an alert flashed across every screen in the chamber. A joint Qatari-Thalorian task force, sent to investigate the Helios expanse, had just gone dark. All 12 ships. No warning, no signal. Gone. Silence fell. Heavy. Cold. Voss, watching the feed from a hidden relay, allowed herself a small smile. Operation Stillwind had begun. Not with fire, but with silence. Not with conquest, but with absence. On the asteroid base, Drace received another message. This one had a new directive. "Disrupt Relay Gamma 7, disable comms in Sector 9, no casualties." She typed a sequence. Across the galaxy, a series of human-operated cargo drones, harmless, unnoticed, adjusted course. They drifted toward key council communication relays. When they got close enough, they emitted a low-frequency pulse, harmless to life but devastating to alien circuitry. One by one, the relays blinked out. Entire sectors fell into radio silence. The council scrambled. Emergency channels failed. Backup systems overloaded. For the first time in centuries, the galaxy's most powerful alliance was blind, deaf, and confused. And through it all, humanity said nothing. No declarations. No threats. No demands, just sense. In a quiet corner of the Virelli's chamber, Jorlan, the Qatari commander who had fought at Cygnus Rift, sat alone. He remembered the humans' discipline, their sacrifice, their strange mix of compassion and steel. He looked at the empty space where the human delegation had once stood, and wondered if they had known this would happen. If they had planned it all along. Back in the Oort cloud, Torvin watched as another ship vanished into the Aegis field. "They called us irrelevant," he said softly. Voss nodded. "Now they'll learn what silence sounds like." And in the endless dark between stars, the unseen fleet moved, not to destroy, but to remind the galaxy of a simple truth. Just because you can't see something doesn't mean it isn't there. And just because a species walks away from your table doesn't mean it has nothing left to say. The Council was losing control. What had begun as scattered disappearances had become a full-blown crisis. Entire supply convoys failed to arrive. Data streams from outer colonies cut out without warning. Even the great orbital shipyards near Thalor Prime reported strange power drains and system glitches that no engineer could explain. The galaxy, once humming with the steady rhythm of trade and communication, now stuttered like a dying engine. Desperate, the Council authorized a joint task force, 12 warships from 6 species, led by the respected Qatari commander Jorlin. Their mission was simple: enter the Helios expanse, locate the source of the disruptions, and restore order. They carried the best sensors, the strongest shields, and the full authority of the Council behind them. Confidence ran high as they crossed the threshold of the expanse. They never came back. Only one escape pod was found drifting near the edge of known space. Inside, curled in a survival cocoon, was a single Qatari pilot, half dead, eyes wide with terror. When medics revived him, he babbled about ships that weren't there, about silence so deep it felt like drowning, about engines that shut down without warning. "They didn't fire," he whispered. "They just turned us off." The Council was stunned. Vexus demanded a full investigation, but there was nothing to investigate. No wreckage, no energy trails, no enemy signatures. It was as if the task force had been erased from reality. Meanwhile, deep beneath the surface of Earth, in a command center carved into the Andes Mountains, Kiravos studied live feeds from hundreds of hidden drones. Each one showed a different slice of the galaxy: shipyards, relay stations, patrol routes. On her main screen, a map glowed with soft blue dots. Every dot was a human vessel: freighters, mining rigs, science probes, even old colony transports. All of them now carried Aegis modules. All of them were invisible. Humanity hadn't built a war fleet. They had turned their entire presence in space into a ghost network. Beside her, Rel Torvin reviewed a new report. "The Zarn are pulling their patrols back to core systems," he said. "The Gorl have sealed their borders. Even the Lumen are refusing Council requests for data sharing." Voss nodded. "Fear spreads faster than light." She tapped a command. On the screen, a civilian freighter named Bright Horizon, registered to a small, Earth-based shipping company, drifted near a major Council supply hub orbiting the gas giant Kessel 9. The freighter looked harmless. Rust on its hull, patched thrusters, outdated comms. No one paid it any attention. But as it passed within range, a low hum pulsed from its hidden emitter. The hub's navigation grid flickered, then failed. For 17 minutes, every ship in orbit lost guidance. No crashes, no explosions, just confusion. By the time systems rebooted, the Bright Horizon was gone, never seen, never logged. This was Operation Stillwind. Not war, not sabotage. Precision disruption. Every action was calculated to cause maximum confusion with zero violence. The goal wasn't to hurt, it was to prove a point. Humanity didn't need to fight to win. They only needed to be unseen. On Luna, in a sealed lab buried under regolith, Miko Drace worked on the next phase. Her hands moved quickly over a console, adjusting harmonic frequencies. Around her, prototypes of new Aegis nodes hummed softly. These weren't just for stealth anymore. They could now emit targeted resonance pulses, tuned to the specific energy signatures of non-human engines. A single pulse could shut down a Thalorian warp core or a Zarn plasma drive for minutes, long enough to disable, long enough to send a message. She received a message from Voss. "Prepare for Phase 3, target Council Central Relay." Drace exhaled. The Central Relay was the heart of the Council's communication network. Located in neutral space near Varellis, it linked every member world. Taking it down would plunge the entire alliance into chaos, but they wouldn't destroy it. They would silence it, just long enough for the Council to feel what it was like to be truly alone. Back on Varellis, panic had turned to paranoia. Delegates accused each other of betrayal. The Zarn claimed the Gorl were hiding human ships. The Lumens suggested the Thalorians had created a secret weapon that had gone rogue. Vexes tried to hold the chamber together, but her voice no longer carried the same weight. Even her own people were beginning to doubt. Then came the gravity incident. It happened without warning. Across 50 light-years of Council-controlled space, artificial gravity systems on every station, ship, and habitat failed at the exact same moment. People floated. Tools drifted. Liquids formed shimmering spheres in the air. For 17 minutes, the laws of physics seemed to pause. Then, just as suddenly, gravity returned. No damage, no injuries. Just a perfect, coordinated demonstration of power. The message was clear. If humanity could turn off gravity, what else could they turn off? In the grand chamber, silence reigned. No one spoke. No one dared. Even Vexus sat frozen, her frills pressed flat against her neck. Jorlin stood and walked out. No announcement. No explanation. He simply left. Others followed. One by one, the chamber emptied until only Vexus remained, staring at the empty seats around her. On Earth, Torvin watched the live feed from Varelli's. "They're starting to understand," he said. Voss stood beside him. Understanding comes too late for some. She activated a secure channel. Across the human network, a new order went out. All units hold position. Maintain veil. Await still wind final phase. Far from Earth, near the edge of the Helios Gate, a lone human vessel, no larger than a shuttle, drifted in the dark. It carried no weapons. Only a single Aegis node tuned to maximum range. Its pilot, a quiet woman named Lena, had been stationed there for weeks. Her job was simple. Wait, watch, and when the time came, press one button. She looked at the stars and thought of home, of green fields, of rain on rooftops, of voices that didn't speak in codes or threats. She missed it. But she also knew why she was here. The Council had thought humanity was weak because they asked for peace. They didn't realize that true strength wasn't in shouting, but in choosing when to speak and when to vanish. Back in the Andes Command Center, Voss received confirmation from Lena. The final node was ready. The entire human diaspora, every ship, every station, every drone, was synchronized. One command would activate them all. Torvin turned to her. "Are we ready?" Voss looked at the screen, at the web of blue dots stretching across the galaxy. "We've been ready since they told us we didn't belong." She entered the final sequence. And across the stars, the unseen hand tightened its grip, not to crush, but to show the galaxy what it had ignored for too long. Humanity was not gone. They were everywhere, and they were done asking for a seat at a table that refused to see them. The offer came without warning. A formal transmission, broadcast on all open channels, signed by every major council species, even Vexus. It promised humanity full membership, veto power on all security matters, and complete control of the Helios Gate. It offered trade restoration, diplomatic immunity, and a permanent seat at the heart of galactic governance. It was everything Earth had been denied just weeks before, everything they had supposedly wanted. The message ended with a single line. "Return to the table. Let us rebuild together." On Varelli's, the Grand Chamber waited. Delegates gathered early, some wearing hopeful expressions, others nervous. Vexus sat rigid in her seat, her frills held stiffly upright, a forced display of calm. She had argued fiercely against the offer, but the losses had become too great. Supply lines were broken. Communications were patchy. Fear had spread like a virus through the ranks of even the most loyal allies. The Council was fracturing, and only humanity's return could stitch it back together. But Earth did not reply. No acknowledgement. No counteroffer. Not even static. The message vanished into the void unanswered. Days passed. Then a week. Still nothing from human space. The Council grew restless. Some claimed humanity had been destroyed by their own arrogance. Others whispered that they had left the galaxy entirely. Vexus clung to the belief that they would come crawling back. Proud, but broken. She was wrong. It began with the lights. On the Thalorian homeworld, every orbital station, power grids, defense platforms, research outposts, lost artificial gravity for exactly 17 minutes. The same number as before. The same precision. No explosions, no damage, just weightlessness. Citizens floated in their homes. Officials clutched desks in panic, and when gravity returned, a single data packet appeared on every public terminal. It contained no threats, only a list. Every council ship that had vanished, every station that had gone dark, every system that had failed, and proof that none had been harmed. Just disabled, just reminded. Then came the silence. Across the Zarn hegemony, every comms relay within 10 light-years shut down at once. Not destroyed, not jammed, simply powered off, as if someone had reached into the circuits and flipped a switch. The Zarn, who relied on constant hive-mind coordination, fell into disarray. Patrols missed shifts. Hive queens lost contact with their drones. For the first time in centuries, the hegemony felt alone. The Goral found their mining operations halted, not by force, but by empty fuel depots. Every transport that should have delivered plasma cells had vanished from tracking. Not stolen, not attacked, just gone, like they had never existed. The Lumen, peaceful and scholarly, discovered their great archives, centuries of shared knowledge, temporarily locked. Not erased, not corrupted, just inaccessible for exactly one solar cycle. A gentle but firm reminder. Even wisdom could be withheld. The pattern was clear. Humanity wasn't attacking. They were demonstrating control. Total, effortless control over the very systems the Council relied on to function. In the Andes Command Center, Kira Voss watched the reports flood in. Her face showed no triumph, only focus. Beside her, Rel Torvin reviewed a new schematic, a map of every Council-aligned engine core within 50 light-years. Each one now carried a hidden harmonic signature, thanks to weeks of silent drone deployments. They're scared, Torvin said. They should be, Voss replied. But fear isn't the goal. Respect is. On Luna, Miko Drace initiated the final test of the resonance field. A small probe, fitted with the new emitter, drifted near a decommissioned Thalorian scout ship. Drace sent a single pulse. The scout's engine core dimmed, then went dark. After exactly 17 minutes, it rebooted on its own. Perfect, clean, reversible. She sent the confirmation. Harmonic lock stable. Ready for full deployment. Back on Varelli's, the mood had shifted from hope to dread. The offer had been ignored. The disruptions had worsened. And now, rumors spread of something worse, something called the unplugging. No one knew what it meant, but the name alone sent chills through the chamber. Vexus finally broke. In a closed session, she demanded immediate military action against Earth. We must strike before they cripple us completely, she shouted, her voice sharp with desperation. But Jorlin stood. The Qatari commander, once silent, now spoke with quiet authority. Strike with what, Vexus? Our ships can't find them. Our sensors can't track them. Our weapons can't reach them. You call them primitive, yet they move through our space like shadows. You call them irrelevant, yet they hold our entire network in their hands. If we attack, we will not find an enemy. We will find emptiness, and in that emptiness we will lose everything. No one argued. Even the Goral delegates nodded slowly. That night, Jorlin sent a private message, not to the Council, but to a hidden frequency once used during the Krellian Wars. A human emergency channel. He didn't know if it still worked. But hours later, a reply came. Just 2 words. We remember. On Mars, in a sealed bunker beneath the red dust, Torvin read the message. He showed it to Voss. They're starting to see us, she said. Not as enemies, Torvin replied. As equals. The final move came without fanfare. Across the galaxy, every non-human vessel equipped with a warp or plasma drive experienced a brief, painless shutdown. Engines cooled. Navigation failed. Life support remained active. No one was hurt. But for 17 minutes, the entire Council fleet, every warship, every patrol, every carrier was powerless, floating, silent. And in that silence, a new broadcast appeared on every screen, every speaker, every comm unit in Council space. Not from Earth, not from a warship, from a simple civilian channel. Rel Torvin's face filled the screen. He wore no uniform, no medals, just the same gray tunic from the peace table. You judged us by your standards, he said, his voice calm, clear, and firm. You measured our worth by your history, your rules, your pride. You called us young, reckless, unfit. But you never asked what we had learned. You never saw that our strength isn't in conquest, but in choice. We could have fought you. We chose not to. We could destroy your systems. We chose to show you how fragile they are. You cast us out thinking we would beg to return. Instead, we showed you that peace cannot be granted like a prize. It must be built by all or by none." He paused. Behind him, stars turned. "The table you offered us is broken. We will not sit at it, but if you are willing to build a new one, together as equals, then we will listen. Until then, we remain unseen, not as a threat, but as a reminder." The transmission ended. On Varelli's, the Grand Chamber sat in stunned silence. Vexus stared at the blank screen, her hands trembling. For the first time, she felt not anger, but shame. In the Oort cloud, Voss watched the last of the council ships drift helplessly in the dark. She gave the order. "Stand down. Maintain veil. Await next phase." The human armada did not celebrate. They did not gloat. They simply waited, silent, ready, and no longer invisible by weakness but by choice. The galaxy had made its mistake. Now it would learn the cost of underestimating those who walk away from the table, not in defeat but in quiet, unshakable strength. The council did not fall with a bang. It faded like a dying star, quietly, inevitably, and without ceremony. Within weeks of Torvin's broadcast, the great alliance that had ruled the galaxy for centuries began to unravel. Trade agreements collapsed as species sought new partners. Defense pacts dissolved as trust evaporated. The Thalorians, once proud architects of order, found their embassies empty, their calls unanswered. Vexus remained on Varelli's, but no one came to her chamber. No one sought her counsel. She sat alone in the grand hall, staring at the stars through the dome, wondering how it all slipped away. Humanity did not take its place. They did not march in with flags and fleets to claim dominance. Instead, they waited, and in that waiting, something new began to grow. It started with the Qatari. Jorlin, acting without council approval, sent a delegation to Mars, not to negotiate, not to plead, but to listen. He brought no demands, only questions. How did humans stabilize the Helios Gate? How did they coordinate without central command? What did they truly want? Torvin met him in a simple dome on the edge of Vallis Marinaris. No guards, no screens, just 2 chairs, a table, and the red dust blowing outside. They spoke for hours, not as former enemies, but as survivors of the same broken system. From that meeting came the first seed of the conquered of equals. Word spread. The Goral, tired of fear and silence, sent envoys. The Lumen, seeking to rebuild knowledge networks, offered their archives freely. Even the Zarn hegemony, humbled and confused, reached out, not through hive commands but through individual voices, asking how to earn trust again. Earth did not rush. They set conditions, no vetoes, no secret councils, no species above another. Every voice equal. Every vote counted. And above all, no more tables where some sat and others stood. The first summit of the conquered was held not in orbit, not in a grand hall, but on the surface of Mars, under open sky. Delegates arrived in simple shuttles. No banners, no armor, just beings from 100 worlds walking side by side on rust-colored soil. Kira Voss watched from a ridge above the meeting grounds. She wore civilian clothes, her hair loose in the thin wind. Below, Yorlin stood beside a young delegate from an ocean world called Nereus, a species that communicated through color shifts in their skin. They were learning each other's languages, sharing food, sketching ideas in the dust. A voice came from behind her. "They're nervous," Torvin said, joining her. "But hopeful," Voss nodded. "Hope is harder to build than fear, but it lasts longer." Down in the valley, the talks began, not with declarations but with questions. How do we share the Helios Gate? How do we protect the weak without controlling them? How do we remember the past without being chained to it? No one mentioned the old council. No one spoke of the silence, the vanishings, the 17-minute blackouts. Those things were understood, not as threats but as lessons. On Luna, Miko Drace powered down the last Aegis emitter. The stealth network was no longer needed. The human fleet, what little remained visible, now flew openly, painted with simple white stripes, a sign of peace, not war. The drones that once carried disruption pulses now delivered medical supplies, data crystals, and seeds for alien crops. Back on Earth, children learned new languages in school. Qatari clicks, Lumen hums, Zarn pheromone codes. Markets sold fruits from a dozen worlds. And in quiet corners, engineers from different species worked together on new drives, new medicines, new ways to live among the stars without ruling them. The galaxy had not been conquered. It had been reminded. One evening, as the sun set over the Martian plains, a young delegate from Nereus approached Torvin. Her skin shimmered with soft blues and greens, a sign of curiosity. "Why did you walk away?" she asked. "From the old table. You could have fought. You could have won." Torvin looked at the stars appearing one by one in the darkening sky. "Because winning that way would have made us like them," he said gently. "We didn't want to replace the Council. We wanted to show that another way was possible. Peace isn't given by the powerful. It's built by everyone who chooses to show up and stay." The young delegate nodded slowly. Her colors shifted to warm gold. Understanding. High above, in silent orbit, Voss stood on the bridge of a ship that bore no name. Around her, the human armada remained cloaked, not out of fear, but out of duty. They were no longer weapons. They were guardians. Watching. Ready. Not to strike, but to protect the fragile thing growing below. The first true peace the galaxy had ever known. Vexus never joined the conquered. She vanished from Varelli's one night, her shuttle heading toward the outer rim. Some said she sought exile. Others claimed she went to study human history, to understand what she had missed. No one knew for sure, but her empty seat in the old grand chamber became a symbol, a warning of what happens when pride blinds you to the strength of the quiet ones. Years later, when the conquered had grown to include over 200 species, when the Helios Gate pulsed with shared traffic and shared dreams, a new phrase entered the galactic tongue. It was spoken by traders, teachers, and children alike. Remember the silence. It meant more than words. It meant respect. It meant that true power does not shout. It listens, it waits, it walks away when the table is broken, and builds a new one with open hands. And far out in the dark, where no sensors reached and no eyes watched, the last of the unseen ships turned their bows toward home. Not because the work was done, but because it had finally begun.